Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great, happy to be here.
Good end of the year for you guys. Take us through this business. I mean, you are in 86 countries, if I have it right. There's a lot going on in the liquor industry. How'd you conclude so well?
Listen, we've had a very strong year, growing basically in all regions. As you say, 86 countries. We grew in Americas. We actually grew pretty well, 6% growth. We grew in Asia, which is our key growth engine, driven by China and India. 9% top line growth there, and we also grew in Europe by some low single digit number, 2%. So overall 6% top line growth, which is very healthy for our business.
That's not easy to do. I mean, this is in many respects a mature industry, but I mean, listen, we have tariff talk, we have inflation. How hard is it to operate in this environment, this type of company?
Well, it's a great question. It's fair to say that we're going through some uncertainty when it goes down to geopolitics or monetary uncertainties as well, but that's part of life. I would call this environment a new world order, where you have much more volatility and uncertainty. But at the end of the day, if you're obsessed by the consumer and you have consistent marketing around your brands and products, that's what matters.
How do you have to operate differently? Have you taken any price increases? I mean, there's a lot of...
Yes, we take price where we can. When we have depreciation of currencies, we try and compensate and offset this by pricing, of course. It's not always easy because you have elasticity, so it goes back to making sure you remain relevant to your consumers. And it's important to be premium. So that's what we try and do.
What is it, in China, to your point, 17% growth. Now, the Chinese economy is slowing, but your growth is accelerating. So what is going on in that market?
There's some pretty strong consumer dynamics in China with what I call the real emergence of middle-class Chinese consumers. So we currently are targeting an audience of 300 million potential consumers, which is going to grow to 600 million by 2027. Every month, every year, you have an extra 6 million households with net monthly income above $4,000. So that's what happens in a market of so many consumers. And we have a great team there, which is investing quite a lot of money from a marketing point of view, from a footprint and headcount point of view, to grow the business over there.
Are you seeing any slowing at all?
It's a great question. It's still a bit early for us to tell. The dynamics are quite strong, and they've been quite strong for last fiscal year for us, and so far so good. But you never know, of course.
What are they buying? Where are they migrating to? Is it higher end? Is it the lower end?
They were buying prestige, luxury kind of spirits, especially with our Martell Cognac, which is the #1 brand in China. But now they're also buying our premium brands portfolio with the likes of Absolut Vodka, which is one of the fastest growing spirit brands in China, but also our Scotch portfolio with the Glenlivet, with Ballantine's, our wines with Chico's Creek. So we're diversifying our sources of growth in China.
Have you had to make any changes in China, given all the tariff talk? Have you taken price increases in China?
We took some pricing last year, and the key point, and it's not just valid for China, but basically for everywhere, is to be extremely flexible, extremely agile, and our teams are locally empowered to make the right decisions when they deem most appropriate.
Switching gears a little bit, Jameson, that's pretty good business for you guys. I mean, this is not exactly a brand you create overnight. What's going on with that? You've seen some strong growth in Jameson.
It's
and even for me, because I'm not out partying like I used to be. So where's it coming from?
So I could use our marketing campaign to answer your question by saying taste. That's why. It's all driven by the quality of the product. Its taste profile. It's a great, very smooth taste. We used to say triple distilled, twice as smooth, and one great taste. So great performance of Jameson, driven by Jameson Original, but also by our innovation strategy around Jameson with Jameson Caskmates, which is Jameson finished in craft beer barrels. It's a great taste to it as well, and premiumization of the franchise with Jameson Black Barrel. So
what is driving that? I mean, is the mixology craze, is that still a thing?
Mixology is a big thing, cocktails and so forth. And the great thing about Jameson is you can mix it with basically anything, and it'll taste extremely good.
All right, well, I'll have to cook something up. On switching gears also to a little bit on vodka. I mean, slower growth market. How are you responding in there? I mean, you seem to be, I was on the latest earnings call, managing more towards keeping costs down and keeping the brand affordable. What are you doing?
Well, it's fair to say that the vodka market in the US is particularly challenging and very competitive.
Yeah.
That being said, the vodka segment here in the US is still the second largest segment in the industry behind whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
It's approximately a little bit more than 1/4 of the industry. And it's not declining, it's basically just slightly growing. So our key challenge for Absolut is really to resonate again and re-engage again with consumers here in the US, because outside the US, the brand is literally flying.
It's just a US thing.
It's a US specific challenge. Mm-hmm. Outside the US, Absolut grew 6%, led by basically all regions, growing in Africa, growing in Europe, growing in India, and growing, as I mentioned it earlier, in China.
You're a former M&A guy. I know you like crunching numbers. I read the bio. So are you inclined to get bigger in vodka to bring down just more economies of scale? What are you inclined to do?
No, we have a great brand with Absolut, so that the key point is really to focus our marketing on the right messaging behind Absolut. That being said, from a portfolio management, we will continue to actively manage our portfolio mm-hmm. by doing some bolt-on acquisitions, mm-hmm. And at the same time probably disposing of non-strategic assets or brands.
But you're sticking with Absolut?
Oh, sure are, yeah, absolutely.
On the acquisition front, I wanted to ask you that about too. It seems like just going through your numbers, you're gearing up for something next year. I mean, where are you looking? What could attract your attention?
We're pragmatic. We're basically really open to opportunities that will pop up. What we really try and look for are brands that are premium, mm-hmm. that have a strong growth profile, that are extremely appealing, that have authenticity and quality attached to them. A couple of examples. Recent examples were Monkey 47, mm-hmm. Which is a superb, I mean, it's a fantastic craft gin, mm-hmm. A great entrepreneur behind it as well. More recently here in the US, there was a Smooth Ambler, West Virginia whiskey, or Del Maguey Mezcal, which comes from Mexico. Sure. So quite a dynamic view of...
But still brand driven, not type of liquor driven.
Yeah, brand driven. I think people transcend now more the categories, mm-hmm. tequila, gin, whiskey, vodka, and are more into brand specific credentials, and depending on the occasion, they'll go for a brand or another. Mm-hmm. And that's what drove us to change our organization by moments of consumption rather than by segments. Mm-hmm.
A couple more for you. Your industry has been pushing into cannabis. I'm frankly getting a little tired of hearing about the push into cannabis, but is this the right move for the industry? Not necessarily inquiring on what you may or may not do. Is this where the industry should go? Are we looking at a future where you see vodka infused with cannabis?
To be fair, we're not there yet. We're just analyzing the consumer dynamics underlying the emergence of cannabis through legalization. We're definitely not at a stage where we're asking ourselves even these questions.
It doesn't seem safe.
It's far too early to really start analyzing that. Mm-hmm. So we're just looking at it from a consumer lens, just to understand what the dynamics mm-hmm. are. But that's as far as it goes, as far as I'm concerned.
Next 10 years for the liquor industry, what are some of your biggest thoughts?
Oh, well, listen, very optimistic, very optimistic. If you look at the spirits industry in the US, which is the largest market, it's 36% of the global premium Western style spirits market. US is a robust market, growing mid-single digit. Demographics are there, so you can see that driving through. And emerging markets as well. If you look just as India and China, which are the two biggest power engines from an emerging markets point of view and consumer dynamics for our business, great future for us. What
do you think leads? Is it liquor over the next 10 years? I mean, we've written a bunch of pieces lately on spiked seltzer. Is that a topic that interests you?
No, what really leads are premium brands. Yeah. Brands that really stand for a purpose and that have authenticity to them and heritage and quality. And now, increasingly so, experiences and services around the brands. I mean, really, consumers increasingly value a brand and an experience.
There are no experiences. I mean, I go to the liquor store, it's just stuff on racks. It's interesting you made that, because you go to a Starbucks, let's say, and you get an experience, but there hasn't necessarily been that outside the bar scene, obviously.
Yeah, well, first of all, it starts in the bar scene.
Yeah.
But also, if you go buy in the liquor store, then you're going to put an experience at your home around a brand. You know, take one of these moments of consumption, which is romantic dinner. And just before the romantic dinner starts, you'll have a bottle of champagne. It can be Paris-Jouet de Belle Époque, rosé, which is probably my personal favorite.
Rosé all day.
And that in itself is a great experience. You know.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Alex. We really appreciate it. Look forward to staying in touch.
Pleasure.